KT and the Squid, and welcome to Help a Fan Out. Last week I posted a question on my Facebook page, and it's a question that I get quite a bit, so I thought it would help a lot of you out. Basically, people want to know, what do you do when you're doing your gauge swatch for your project? And I'm talking about crochet. And you get the right amount of stitches, but your height is either your stitches are too tall or they're too short. This can be really frustrating because if you go up a hook size, it's going to make your stitches fatter, so they're not going to match stitch-wise. And if you go down, same thing, your stitches are going to be smaller, so you're going to have too many stitches. There are a bunch of different solutions for this problem, so I'm going to give you a few things to try out to keep in your back pocket for when you come into this situation. On my Facebook page, a couple people said that they like to manipulate their stitches to either make them taller or shorter. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but basically almost every crochet stitch starts off with you yarn over and you pull up a first loop through your stitch, the stitch below that you're working. Now you can either make this first loop taller to make your stitch taller, or you can pull it down tighter to make it shorter. So this is a shawl that I'm working on. I'm just going to show you really quick. I'm working double crochet, so I've yarned over, and I'm going to insert it through my stitch here. Now, for this first loop that I pulled up through the stitch, I can take my hook and I can pull it up taller, or I can take my hand holding the yarn and pull it down shorter. Now, if you need a little bit more help than that, I suggest going on the internet and finding some other tutorials out there. There's a lot of great ones. This method is a little bit complicated at first and it takes some practice, but it's a great tool to have in case some of these other more simple solutions don't work for you. When you first try this method, I suggest not switching between different projects because you need to remember how much you're pulling up that loop or pulling it down tight. And when you're switching between different projects, it can throw you off a little bit. So that's one of the reasons that I don't really like this method the best. Another solution is a little bit more simple, and it involves just taking a look at your hooks. So this is just some of my hooks that I pulled out of where I keep my supplies. And if you take a look at all these hooks, there's different shapes, there's different sizes, and there's also different material hooks. So you don't want to, if you're trying to match your height, you don't want to switch to a different size hook, but you might want to try to switch to a different material or a different brand hook. So if you look, this is a Bates right here. So the Bates has a little bit of a pointy tip, and the shaft is a little bit different shaped than a boy hook. So a simple switch between those two brands, and those are the most common ones out there, that could really help you out. Now if that doesn't work, you could try a wooden hook. A wooden hook is going to grab a little bit differently on your yarn, and that might affect your height a little bit, so that might help you out as well. And then you also have plastic hooks, and within all those different material of hooks, there's different shapes too. So it's always a great idea to have not just every size hook in the same brand, but have a few different brand hooks and a few different material of hooks in your supplies. Something else with your hooks that might help, if you have an aluminum hook and it's brand new, you might need to break it in a little, and that might help you with your height as well. So this is a little weird, so bear with me. To break in your hook, sometimes what I like to do is just kind of rub it in my hair, and that can take off some of the roughness and just make it easier to work with. If maybe you have short hair or something, you could also try a dryer sheet or even just rubbing it on your clothes or something like that. Now another solution, just like different kinds of hooks can work differently for gauge, different kinds of yarn can work differently. So you could try a different fiber type. Great rule of thumb is to use the same yarn, or at the very least the same fiber that the designer used, and hopefully they put that information in the pattern. A great resource for that, if you need to maybe switch to a different brand, would be yarnsub.com. So if you need to find a similar yarn because you can't find the exact brand, or maybe you can't afford it, I suggest checking out that website. So this last solution is something that I would probably do, and it's just because that's the way my brain works and I think it's the easiest solution for me. It might not be the easiest solution for you, especially if you don't really have a brain for how patterns work and how the math works for patterns. But somebody actually said it on the page. If they're off on height in their gauge, they'll just change how many rows they do for their pattern. So this can take a little bit of math, and like I said, it takes a little bit of understanding of how the pattern works. And it's really important that you make sure all the different parts of the pattern still work together. So if you're adjusting height for, like, if you're doing a sweater for your arm opening, you also have to make sure that you're adjusting the height for your sleeve cap, or however the sleeve is put in, to make sure those two fit together the way that they're supposed to. So there you have it. Those are some great tips for you to try next time that you're off on your height. I hope this helps, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.